She's sitting across from him at dinner. He's checking his phone. Again. She mentioned something that happened at work, something that actually mattered to her, and he nods without looking up. He says. That's it. Just And right there, in that moment, something inside her goes quiet. This is brutal relationship, where we skip the fairy tales and give you the raw truth about what actually makes relationships work. No sugarcoating, no BS, just the uncomfortable insights most people are too afraid to talk about. Now, let me tell you something that's going to challenge everything you think you know about what women want. Most men believe they know what women need. They think it's about having enough money, being good-looking enough, saying the right things, or being successful. And look, those things don't hurt. But here's what most people miss. There's something deeper, something more fundamental that sits at the core of every healthy relationship between a man and a woman. Without it, everything else crumbles. With it, you can weather almost any storm. The most important thing every woman needs from a man isn't romance. It isn't money. It isn't even love, at least not in the way you've been taught to think about it. It's emotional presence. Let that sink in for a second. I'm not talking about just being physically there. I'm talking about being genuinely, fully, undeniably present in the moments that matter. And before you roll your eyes and think this is some soft, touchy-feely concept, let me show you exactly why this matters more than anything else you could possibly offer. Think about the last time you felt truly seen by someone. Not just acknowledged, not just noticed, but actually seen, where someone looked at you and understood what was happening beneath the surface. How rare is that feeling? Here's the thing most men don't realize. Women live in a world where they're constantly being looked at but rarely actually seen. They're evaluated, judged, categorized, and objectified all day long. But emotional presence? That's where a man says, I see who you really are. I'm here with you, not just next to you. But here's where it gets interesting. Emotional presence isn't about being her therapist. It's not about fixing her problems or having all the answers. In fact, trying to fix everything is one of the fastest ways to completely miss what she actually needs. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in real life. Sarah comes home from work. She's frustrated. Her boss undermined her in a meeting, and she's trying to explain what happened. The average guy, let's call him Tom, immediately jumps into solution mode. Well, you should have said this, or next time just do that, or have you tried? And with each suggestion, Sarah gets quieter, more distant. Tom thinks he's being helpful. He's trying to fix the problem because he cares. But what Sarah actually needed in that moment wasn't a strategy, session. She needed him to just be there with her in the frustration, to witness it, to let her feel what she's feeling without rushing her past it. Now watch what happens when a man understands emotional presence. Sarah comes home with the same story. This time, Michael puts down his phone. He turns toward her, and this is crucial. He actually turns his body toward her. He looks at her and says, "That sounds really frustrating." He doesn't offer solutions. He doesn't minimize it. He just stays there with her. He lets her vent. He asks questions that show he's tracking with her. What did you say when that happened? How did that make you feel? And something shifts in Sarah. She relaxes. She feels understood. And here's the paradox. Once she feels heard, she often figures out her own solution anyway. So what do you do if you've been the first guy your whole life? If you've been trained to fix and solve and strategize? First, recognize that being emotionally present is actually harder than offering solutions. Solutions are easy. They let you stay in your head. Presence requires you to step into discomfort, to sit with feelings that might be messy or unclear. It requires you to quiet your own need to fix, control, or move on from the uncomfortable moment. Start practicing this simple shift. When she shares something emotional, ask yourself, is she asking for my help, or does she just need me to listen? 9 times out of 10, it's the second one. Make eye contact. Turn your body toward her. Put your phone face down on the table. And here's the key. Reflect back what you're hearing. So what I'm hearing is you felt disrespected when... This isn't about parroting. It's about proving you're actually listening. Let me show you how this actually works on a deeper level. Women are often told they're too emotional or too sensitive. They grow up learning to edit themselves, to tone it down, to make their feelings more palatable for the people around them. So, when a woman is with a man who can handle the full spectrum of her emotions without flinching, without trying to shut it down, without making her feel like she's too much, that's not just comforting, that's liberating. This is where most men get it wrong. They think being a strong man means being stoic, unshakable, emotionally bulletproof. And there's truth to that. You do need to be grounded, especially when things get chaotic. But here's what most people miss. Real strength isn't about being unaffected by emotions. It's about being able to stay present with them without being swept away. Think about this. When a woman is emotional, and you immediately try to fix it or logic her out of it, what are you really saying? You're saying, your feelings make me uncomfortable, so I need you to stop having them. Even if that's not your intention, that's what she receives. But when you can sit there, steady and present, while she's upset or scared or frustrated, you're communicating something much more powerful. You can feel whatever you need to feel. I'm not going anywhere. I can handle this. That's emotional presence, and it's what separates boys from men in relationships. Now here's where this gets even more critical. Emotional presence doesn't just apply to the difficult moments. It's just as important, maybe even more important, in the mundane, everyday interactions. Because relationships aren't built in grand gestures. They're built in the 1,000 tiny moments where you either show up or check out. She tells you about her day while you're scrolling through your phone. That's a moment. She makes a joke and looks at you to see if you caught it. That's a moment. She mentions something she's excited about and you give her a distracted, "That's cool." That's a moment. And you just failed it. Each of these tiny moments is either a deposit or a withdrawal in the emotional bank account of your relationship. Most men don't realize they're bleeding out their relationship one distracted at a time. Here's the psychological framework behind this, and pay attention because this is crucial. Dr. John Gottman, one of the leading researchers on relationships, calls these bids for connection. Every time your partner shares something with you, even something small, they're reaching out. They're saying, "Hey, connect with me right now." And you have 3 options. You can turn toward the bid, turn away from it, or turn against it. Turning toward means you engage, even briefly. Turning away means you ignore it. Turning against means you shut it down or respond negatively. Gottman's research found that couples who stay together turn toward each other's bids 86% of the time. Couples who divorced, they only turn toward each other 33% of the time. Let that sink in. You don't need grand romantic gestures. You need to show up in the small moments. That's what emotional presence actually looks like day to day. So what do you do with this information? Start tracking yourself. For the next week, pay attention to how many times your partner makes a bid for connection and how you respond. When she shows you something on her phone, do you actually look? When she tells you about something funny that happened, do you laugh with her? Or just give her a quick smile and go back to what you were doing? The awareness alone will change your behavior. Once you see how often you're turning away, you can start making different choices. And here's what's wild. Turning toward these bids takes almost no effort. It just takes attention. Look up from your phone, make eye contact, give her 30 seconds of undivided attention. That's often all it takes. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, this sounds exhausting. I have to be on all the time. I have to monitor every interaction. No. Here's the thing. Emotional presence isn't about being perfect. It's not about never being distracted or tired or wanting space. It's about the overall pattern. It's about whether she feels like she matters to you, whether she feels like when it counts, you're there. Not just physically there, but actually there. And listen, there's a massive difference between needing downtime and chronic emotional absence. Every human needs time to decompress, to be in their own head, to not be on. That's healthy, that's necessary, but there's a way to do that while still maintaining connection. It's called communication. Imagine this scenario. You come home from work completely drained. Your tank is empty. She starts telling you about her day, and you can feel yourself not having the capacity to be present. The old way of handling this? You fake it. You nod along while thinking about something else. She can tell you're not really there, but you're both pretending everything's fine. This slowly builds resentment on both sides. Here's the better way. You say, "Hey, I want to hear about your day, but I need 20 minutes to decompress first. Can I take a quick shower and then let's sit down and you can tell me everything?" Watch what happens. She doesn't get upset. Why? Because you acknowledged her. You told her you want to be present and you're taking the steps to make sure you can be. You didn't reject her bid for connection. You asked to postpone it so you could engage properly. That's still emotional presence. That's still turning toward. The key is intentionality. You're not just checking out and hoping she doesn't notice. You're being honest about your capacity and making a plan to reconnect. That's what mature emotional presence looks like. So what do you do when you realize you need space? Name it clearly and give her a timeline. I need some time to myself, but I want to connect with you after. Give me an hour? This does two things. First, it respects your need for space. Second, it reassures her that you're not pulling away from the relationship. You're just taking care of yourself so you can show up better. Most conflicts around neediness versus distance in relationships come down to this: unclear communication about emotional availability. When you make your availability clear, you eliminate the guessing game that drives people crazy. Now we need to talk about something that makes a lot of men uncomfortable. Vulnerability. You can't be emotionally present for someone else if you're disconnected from your own emotions. This is the part where a lot of men check out. I don't do feelings, or I'm just not wired that way. But that's not true. You're absolutely wired that way. You've just been trained to ignore the signals. Here's what most people miss about vulnerability in relationships. Women don't need you to be vulnerable all the time or to break down crying at every sad movie. What they need is to know that you're a real human being with an inner world, not just a robot who goes to work and comes home and repeats. When you share what you're actually thinking or feeling, not just the safe surface level stuff, you give her permission to do the same. You create emotional intimacy. But there's a balance here, and this is where it gets tricky. Women are attracted to strength. They want a man who can be their rock when things get hard. So how do you be vulnerable without seeming weak? You be vulnerable from a place of strength, not desperation. You share your fears or frustrations, but you do it with ownership and self-awareness. Let me show you what I mean. Weak vulnerability sounds like this. I'm so stressed. I don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart. I can't handle this. That's dumping. That's looking for her to fix you or rescue you. Strong vulnerability sounds like this. I've been feeling a lot of pressure lately with work and I'm working through how to handle it. I wanted you to know what's going on with me. You're sharing your internal experience, but you're not collapsing. You're still standing. You're just letting her in. Think about this. When you share something real with her, not a performance, not what you think she wants to hear, but something actually true, you create a moment of connection that can't be faked. And when she shares something vulnerable with you, and you handle it well, you prove that you're safe. That's the foundation of trust. That's what emotional presence builds over time. So what do you do if you've spent years disconnected from your own emotions? Start small. Start paying attention to your body. Emotions show up physically before they show up in your thoughts. Tight chest? That might be anxiety. Clenched jaw? Probably anger or frustration. Heaviness? Could be sadness. Don't try to analyze it or fix it. Just notice it. Name it to yourself. I'm feeling anxious right now. That's step one. Once you can identify what you're feeling, you can start sharing it with her. Not everything, not all at once, but something real. I've been feeling off today is a start. I'm frustrated about this situation is better. You're building the muscle of emotional awareness and expression. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Let's bring this full circle. Remember that dinner scene from the beginning? The woman trying to share something that mattered, and the guy giving her nothing but while staring at his phone? That's not just a missed moment. That's a vote against the relationship. And most men are casting those votes multiple times a day without even realizing it. Emotional presence is the most important thing a woman needs from a man, because it's the foundation everything else is built on. Your success, your ambition, your looks, your sense of humor, all of that matters, but without presence, none of it sticks. Without presence, she feels alone even when you're right next to her. And that loneliness is what kills relationships slowly, quietly, one ignored moment at a time. But here's the good news. This is a skill. It's not something you either have or you don't. It's something you can learn, practice, and get better at. Every single day gives you dozens of opportunities to practice being present, to put down your phone, to make eye contact, to ask a follow-up question, to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, to share something real, to show her that she matters by giving her your attention, the most valuable thing you have to offer. The relationships that last aren't the ones where everything is perfect. They're the ones where both people keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep being present even when it's hard. That's what builds something real. That's what creates the kind of connection that doesn't just survive but actually thrives. So here's your challenge. Starting right now, for the next 7 days, practice emotional presence. Put your phone away when she's talking to you. Turn your body toward her. Ask real questions and listen to the answers. Notice when she makes a bid for connection and turn toward it instead of away. Share one real thing about your internal world each day. Doesn't have to be deep, just has to be honest. And watch what happens. Watch how the energy between you shifts. Watch how she softens. Watch how the relationship starts to feel different because you're finally showing up the way she's needed you to all along. That's what being a man is really about. Not pretending you have it all figured out. Not being invulnerable. But being strong enough to be present, grounded enough to handle emotions without being swept away by them, and secure enough to let someone truly see you. That's the work. And that's what she needs from you more than anything else you could possibly give.